Scioto Marsh is located in the western half of Hardin County. This black, swampy area of land was once seen as an inconvenience to people and a waste of land. Technological developments have transformed the marsh into valuable farmland that has a very interesting story. Marshes are formed from glacial depressions which form a basin. The glacier eventually melts, which floods the area, turning the basin into a lake. Plants begin to grow and eventually make their way towards the center of this body of water. Plants eventually live their lives and die, leaving a large amount of nutrients behind. In 1859, the Scioto Marsh was drained. John McGuffey dug channels and dredged the river to allow for more drainage. Later, Colonel Sage dredged the river and increased the depth by 6 feet to allow for more water to drain off the marsh. After the marsh was drained, floods still plagued the area. In 1919, the Morgan Engineering Company was hired to increase the size of the Scioto River to allow for more water drainage. Once the marsh was completely drained, the onion crop took off. Many people came to the marsh to try to make it big by farming onions.
They could make it in good years. They could make a lot of money. But if you had a bad year, you really could go from rags to riches, or from riches to rags, just in 1 year, because of the cost to get it in.
Despite the risks, onion farming became very popular, which brought many new people to the marsh and directly impacted the local areas nearby.
They were communities built on the muck. And the folks that settled there were mainly folks from eastern Kentucky who'd come up to work the fields, and they stayed.
By 1910, the onion crop had been so successful that Alger, McGuffey, and Foraker became major trading posts for onions. Eventually, after a few years, many problems began to arise. After being plowed so many times, the soil became very loose and would get swept away in the wind, causing windstorms of blowing muck, which eventually started a problem with erosion. Another problem and source of erosion was muck fires. These fires were very difficult to track and extinguish. After many years of farming, the soil began to lose nutrients essential for onions. This led to lower yields and eventually caused the onion strike of 1934. After the strike, onions were no longer grown and the boom was over. Farmers began to plant new crops in the marsh.
Now, there's corn. There's standard, corn and beans. Now, they do some specialty down there now. Carrots. They grow a lot of carrots. Years ago, they tried potatoes, and they even had some mint.
Although the marsh grows many standard crops now and is farmed similar to regular farmland, it has made a lasting impact.
People who came after them, who opened other marshes, went to school on the Scioto Marsh to find out all these things not to do or to try to avoid.
The Scioto Marsh has a very interesting story. From its drainage in 1839 to the onion strike of 1934 and all the trials and errors to live life successfully on the marsh show its colorful history. In the beginning, the marsh was seen as a waste of land and a major inconvenience. Throughout time, this assumption has been proven false. The marsh was transformed into treasured farmland and is still very valuable today.